right, here we are, Awesemo. It is the live before lock baseball edition here. We've got a new face joining me. I, of course, am your old pal Emac, but we have one T McBee, Terry McBride, who has been joining me on the Early Bird podcast. He's been writing the articles. He was the behind-the-scenes face of the KBO. Here he is making his video debut. Terry, welcome. Welcome to the big show.
Thanks, buddy. It's good to get the call up. You know, it's got a little tap. I think it took a power outage like across the entire Eastern Seaboard, but hey, we're here making the debut. So nice to put the face in front of the wall now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So everyone, you want to be nice, give us a few likes. You know, it's Terry's first show, so let's treat him right. Have a good
That's
one
not
here.
how the internet works.
Yeah, it's exactly how they. Oh, so I see. Brian says, "Come on, Emac, AirPods or something, dude." Right here. What do I have? Still in the box. AirPods. Why are they still in the box? Because I am a technological jinx. So I wanted to start eliminating various variables before I charge those and introduce that into the mix here.
Probably a good call.
But yes, these little curly ones they were wound up tight and in the back of a drawer for a while. My dog ate the other pair I had. And because we're on these old versions of the Blue Yeti, it doesn't take the new iPhone connector. Right. So yes, I will be getting. My wife's like, I bought those for you. Like, why haven't you gotten those going yet? And I'm like, because I got to make sure everything else is working before I bring those in. So there we go. We've got that. But yeah, we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. Let's just kind of jump in. Shout out to our sponsor, SuperDraft. They're the ones that are being featured on the majority of our shows. But I do want to call out that they are on at 7:10 tonight for their contest. They were going with the last 9, and we've got everybody else going at 7:05 with 10 games. So you've got a couple minutes to hop on over there. We're waiting for just one more lineup, so that'll make things a lot easier. We currently do not have the Angels lineup. There's been a couple pitching changes throughout the day and from last night. We do know that Julio Teheran is going to be pitching for the Angels. TJ, we were debating on how to pronounce his name. I'm going with Antone. We'll have to find out if that is correct or not. He will be going for the Reds. We thought it was going to be Luis Castillo. And then we had Lance McCullers out and then back in. And here we are with Lance McCullers. So no issues there. And if you are playing hockey, we just got the goalie update here. And I'm going to let you know that Klingberg and Bishop are out for Dallas. Bishop, I believe, is their goalie. So
breaking news in multiple sports. Look at this.
Well, I'm playing all the hockey slates, which is hard because I was playing all the basketball slates. I'm taking a break from basketball today. I only played the main slate. And then I'm playing all the baseball slates. Well, when you play all the hockey slates, you've got multiple showdowns. You've got tiers. You've got like 3 or 4 regular slates. I forgot to set my lineups earlier today because I thought the lock was later. I got it confused with the NBA lock. So, yeah, sometimes that happens. But
every now and then that happens. I slept through a couple KBO locks. I've missed locks plenty of times before. I know that feeling.
Yeah, so Ben Bishop, I have him on 7% of my lineup. So I'll just go in and tweak that while we're on air. But let's talk about the games here as everybody's kind of collecting. We'll talk a little bit about our tools here at Awesemo. And then most importantly, back there to SuperDraft, they are, for all of their different sports, now this is not going to happen for golf and not going to happen for NASCAR. They'll start at the same time as everybody else, and MMA. But for NBA, for MLB and for NHL, they're starting a little bit later than whatever the other sites' main slates are, and they're doing that so they get everybody have a chance to come over. So if you have not made a deposit yet, you can already have an account, but if you haven't made your first deposit, if you use the promo code Awesemo10 and put in $10, they will match it with $10 in super cash. If you put in upward 100 or more, they'll make that $20. So definitely check that out. Same promo code Awesemo10, Awesemo10. And then free today here on Awesemo is the MLB projections. So that is one of my favorite things. I'll drop that link over here into the YouTube chat, but those are free for today. So we'll get that going as well. Definitely check those out. All right, heading into our first game in the tools. We'll talk about where we are. We'll wait for our next ownership update just to talk about that. In the meantime, kind of hit on some of our pitching here. Terry kind of focuses a lot on FanDuel. I kind of play most of my games over here on the two-pitcher site, so SuperDraft, Yahoo, and DraftKings in particular. But I'm looking at going with a lot of scary pitchers today, such as I think Randy Dobnak actually is kind of coming up the list a little bit. 4.2 implied run total there for the Pirates. That's kind of growing on me. I don't really know what to do with TJ Antone. He is 4,000 even true reliever pricing on DK. So even if he's only going, for a brief appearance, I don't mind that just because I'm looking for a little differentiation here and there. Clevenger, I think, is going. Sorry, I lost my page there. Clevenger is going to be probably the best pitcher on our slates, but he is also one of the most expensive. But we have a decent chance of getting close to 100 pitches out of him. So it's well worth that price point. What do you want to do here with some of our early pitching names I've thrown out? Or is it, wait for it, Yu Darvish bringing the hammer? Forget about the curveball rookie. Bring him the heater.
You know I'm a Yu Darvish fan, and I've got him in a great spot here against KC. He's my second highest FanDuel pitcher. So Clevenger is the top guy, and it's by a decent margin, so I'm probably going to get to a ton of Clevenger as well. FanDuel, I like to hit those aces when I can. The pricing isn't too bad, and McCullers is at a decent price there. I'm getting a decent projection on Dallas Keuchel as just kind of a guy who could probably get 6 innings or so, induce a lot of ground balls. He's not a strikeout pitcher like we talked about on the early bird last night. But when I'm getting an okay projection on him, he's a guy at 6,900 on FanDuel that you can get away with a lot on, in your lineups with your bats there. So he's an option for me. The guys that you named on the lower end, I think are more a two-pitcher site kind of plays. Like we've talked about a bunch of times, get that second pitcher in there pretty cheap. Lets you do a lot of special things with those 5-man stacks, those 5-3 combinations on DraftKings. So I like that. I don't know that Dobnak is my guy if I'm doing that. There might be a couple other guys, maybe I'm not sure what Stripling's price is, a Garrett Richards. So maybe look at a couple of those guys. But on like a 5% kind of a play, I don't mind the Dobnak. Not really sure, like you said, what to do with our new friend for the Reds, TJ Antone. Don't know too much about him. He was their 24th overall prospect. Looked at his minor league numbers, and he's like a 20% guy. So
yeah. So here's what he is in the minors. So he, in theory, is a starter. He went about 4 innings in his major league last major league appearance, but he's been a starter for the whole time. Now, where as Terry was saying, yeah, it's not overly exciting. 5 years in the minors. He has 600 minor league innings. He has a 6.8 strikeout rate. Not great. 2.4 walk rate. That's really good. So he looks like he's kind of more of a control pitcher. Not a ton of strikeout upside. The ERA was 3.7, which is really, really good. But he's not allowing base runners. And he doesn't really allow home runs either. Just 39 in those 611 innings. So for 4,000, he's going against a veteran lineup filled with switch hitters. And I'm hoping for 4,000 on DK, I'll probably go 15 or 20% in my lineups. And that will enable me that'll be following the crowd, but going with the Blackman, David Dahl guys, etc. Maybe a Mike Trout, because he got a home run on his first game back, baby game. It's Mike Trout. He needs to have those 2 in a row, right? 2 in a row for the next week, just to celebrate the birth of his first child. But that's kind of what there is on Dobnak, on Antone. For Antone, what is he on FanDuel? Is he in their player pool? I'm assuming he is because he had pitched a few days ago.
He is 5,500. So one pitcher site. I mean, it's a great price, but one pitcher site. I'm getting a slightly better projection on Bubic. You've got Newcomb is 5,800. I don't really trust him. Hauser's only 61. I'd much rather have Hauser than TJ Antone. So don't love it on FanDuel, but like you said, it makes a ton of sense over on DraftKings where he's less expensive than a lot of the bats that you want to get into your lineup. So he could really help you do some interesting things over there. And you're really only hoping for, 5 innings, maybe a couple of strikeouts and not to get blown up. That's really what we're looking for from him.
All right. Let's look at some of the other ones we've got here. He's so Antone kind of kicks away Trevor Williams for me. I went back and forth on Trevor Williams. First, there's been enough here that I don't think we really have to go to him. But when I was looking at writing my article last night for the spotlight hitters, he was someone I was trying to decide, do I want to pick on him or do I think he's good enough to kind of suppress what the Twins are going to bring? And digging into his background a little bit, there are so many things here. I can't call up my own.
Too many windows.
My own thing. All right. So the items I didn't know, I was worried, how many times does he give up crooked numbers, right? Because sometimes we get these guys who are like, oh, they're gas cans, but it's really because they don't really strike out anybody and they just kind of scuffle along and they don't get double-digit fantasy points for DraftKings scoring, but it's because they're really not getting strikeouts and they can still go 5 or so innings or whatever. So over his last 19 starts, there was 2 this year, and then the remainder were from last year. Williams had allowed multiple home runs 9 times. Now, yes, that is a little bit of cherry picking because in the first half of last season, he didn't have very many games where he allowed multiple, but he then had a whole stretch where he was allowing 2 on these games. So that, to me, maybe something changed. Did they figure him out? He's really profiles as about a number 4 pitcher. He's masquerading as the number 2 pitcher because, wait for it, Joe Musgrove is the ace right now with Chase or Chris Archer being out and Jameson Taillon being out this year. Right. So the Pirates, it's kind of a mess. So that means someone we can probably go against. And then I said, PNC Park, well, that kind of suppresses right-handed power from a home run perspective, but we can still get our doubles, our gappers, all that fun stuff. His Williams ERA since 2016, so this is for his career, is 4.25, which is kind of good. But his xFIP is 4.75. So that shows that he's been a little bit lucky. Some of that comes under the guise of the fact that he has an okay ground ball rate, but he does, allow a little more walks than league average, strikes out well less than league average. So if there are base runners on, I'm feeling okay that I can get the crooked numbers that I want. So I'm looking, can we get to 5 runs? We really, if you get a few solo home runs, that doesn't help your stack. If you get a bunch of runs, some RBIs, and a bunch of singles, maybe a double or 2, that doesn't help your stack either. But I like the extra base upside. So here's what we got. In their last 500 at-bats, Kepler, Cruz, Garver, Rosario, and Sano all have isolated powers of 200 or more. And Polanco and Luis Arias get on base about 40% of the time. Feeling good that there should be some base runners. Now, what they do when the guys are on base, I don't know. But I'm okay going against him. It's not a slam dunk play by any stretch. But I felt more comfortable that enough things on the side of the ledger of going against Trevor Williams than rolling him out came into play for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, when you add up all those different pieces, it adds up to somebody that we can target. And, it doesn't have to be overly aggressive targeting. Just looking at the Twins in the top stack tool, Awesemo's got them, or Alex has them ranked 4th on FanDuel and 2nd overall on DraftKings. They look a little bit more owned on DraftKings. Sounds like the cops are coming for me outside. Apologies there, living in the city, Jersey City. So they're over-owned a little bit on both of the sites, but it's not extreme. They're a team you can certainly play. They're at around 10%, 10.8% team ownership on FanDuel, around 15% on DraftKings. So maybe look for a couple lower-owned plays, like you mentioned, Luis Arias in the middle back end of that lineup. You can stick him in there, hope he gets on base for one of those big bats. Like if you're playing a Mitch Garver, maybe it makes sense to put Arias above him. Hope that he's on base when Mitch goes off and hits one of those home runs if he does. I don't love chasing home runs in my model. Like I use it as a guide for power. But like you mentioned, it's a great way if you're just chasing the home run model to get stuck on, well, that guy put up a 22, but nobody else did anything. And now I've got some holes in my lineup. I got a couple zeros, or a guy's got a 3 here. So I don't love doing that. But when you put together the on-base ability plus the power, a couple of the guys at the top of the lineup, you're really grading out nicely for power. So I like the Twins here. I think they can put up a decent score. A lot of green in my conditional formatting here on Excel for the top of this lineup. So you can get in there, get to a Garver to mix things up, maybe a Jake Cave. He's hitting 5th in this lineup. You can probably get him in there and get different a little bit. So I like it. It's a play I can get to.
All right. Moving along here, a couple other things that caught my eye. Newcomb as well. So 6,000 even there on DraftKings. He's going against Toronto. 4.6 implied run total for Toronto. How far, and for those of you guys that don't know, Terry maps out a lot of this stuff on his own model. How far do you have Newcomb going into this game?
It can't be far. Let me see.
Is it going to be more than 3 2/3 is my question.
I would doubt it. Let's see. So doing some quick math in my head, it would probably be around that. It's okay. I don't use, obviously, you can't convert the exact 2/3
right.
In math here. So I've got 3-1-5, which kind of equates to like 3 1/3, 3 2/3, somewhere in that range. Okay. So yeah, not a lot there. Toronto is a team I wrote up last night. Like all the juniors and second generation kids at the top of this lineup, I think they get a lot going here, and I think that's a spot we can definitely target.
Yeah, and that was kind of where I wanted to bring that one up, because with Antone coming in, and maybe go with a little bit of Walker, maybe you start to look at John Gray, who we'll talk about here in just a second. You can kind of get away from this. Maybe you go with Dobnak, etc. So some of what we were looking at last night is clarified a little bit from that one. If we look at the interesting one I want to talk about is John Gray, and then we'll get some of your thoughts there, and then we'll start looking at the tools and seeing what we've got with regards to ownership and leveraging and stuff like that. So where did that Rockies game end up? We have a 5.1 implied total for San Francisco, and that is with the DH now. And we've got 6.6 for the Rockies. So that's about where it was last night. Logan Webb was the listed starter when we started. When we went off after recording our show, Logan Webb disappeared as the projected starter on all the sites, Terry. So I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Is there going to be an opener, or what's going on? All right, well, we're back to Logan Webb, which is a good thing for DFS. So I wanted to point out just that John Gray is a pretty good pitcher, 23.7% strikeout rate against righties, as well as opposite-handed pitchers hitters over the last 2 seasons. At home, in his last 169 innings, which is nice, he has a 4.21 4.21 ERA, 1.12 home run rate. That's in Coors Field. That's pretty low. Those are the raw numbers, so that's not adjusted for park factor, defense, all of that. His xFIP is, and it says he should have got a 3.47 in those 169 innings. So he's actually pretty decent. For his price point, I'm okay going 10% on him today. I ended up, I think it was 7 or 8% yesterday on Herman Marquez, and I just wanted to call that one out again today. I do want to say that the Giants have a bottom 10 bullpen of everybody who's a reliever active on their team right now. Looking back over the last 2 years against everybody else who's active in the league, they have managed to compile bottom 5 or bottom 10 numbers in both efficiency metrics as well as our standard metrics. So if we can get to those later innings, there's a chance that Yastrzemski and those guys are going to be fine. It just may be tough going in the first, 4 or 5 innings.
Yeah, you might have to ride through another one of those nights where you're checking scores and nothing's happening, and then all of a sudden Coors pops at the end of the night for you if you're playing those Giants bats. They did look, again, going by the top stacks tool, both of the Coors teams look under-owned today. So it looks like people are getting off of Coors a little bit on both sides. Not to an extreme for the Rockies, but the Giants look to have a pretty good differential there. So that's something I would dig into a little bit, maybe poke around at that. But to your point, I really like John Gray. He's a pitcher that I think he can get away with a lot at Coors. He knows how to pitch there. You mentioned his home xFIP. For his career, his home xFIP is 3.42. So, I mean, that's a good number. And for Coors Field, that's outrageous. That is a guy who knows how to pitch there. So at these prices, he's 6,300, I think, on FanDuel. So he's not the highest projected guy, but he's certainly, for the money, a guy that I can target, and you can build basically whatever lineup you want. So you get a lot of his Rockies teammates in there, put together a 3-man with Rockies, and then go to one of the other high-priced teams. And now you're really talking about a quality lineup. So, yeah, I like that John Gray play a lot. Not so much on the other side of it with Logan Webb there. That's a guy I'll target with some Rockies bats, I think.
Yeah, we're waving off Logan Webb. Full steam ahead. Go after him. This will be the last time we get to talk about the Rockies for a little bit. Tomorrow they play at 3:40, and then they're off to Seattle for a weekend series before coming back to Coors Field to host the Arizona Diamondbacks. Looking ahead there. So we'll still be talking about him over the weekend, but that's because Seattle pitching is not that great.
Yeah,
but,
different reasons.
Yeah, different reasons. And we'll probably wave off the bottom of the lineup. But with regards to pricing, DraftKings just is making it a very decent decision point today for their top guys on the Rockies lineup. So I like to see that. Even FanDuel, I think they managed to make 4 players above 3,800 or something like that.
Yeah, the top 4 in the lineup are above 3,800, which you like to see. Makes it a little bit more challenging to get there. The last 3 guys are still 2,500 and 2,900, but what can you do there? But yeah, DK is doing a little bit better of a job, I think, so far with some of those prices and how they're being a little bit dynamic and actually making a challenging game out of it, which this is supposed to be. So you're not supposed to be able to just stick in whoever you want. So you like to see that.
All right, let me see here. Reminder: hit that like button. Got to give Terry a warm welcome here for making his first debut on our video shows. You will get Terry and I on the Early Bird podcast for tomorrow. That will be posted later tonight. And then we are back in full effect. We've got the DFS strategy show series back for baseball and basketball. We've got the live before locks, etc. You're getting Jay Kari sneaking in here for some NHL from time to time. We've got MMA tonight. We've got golf because tomorrow is Thursday, and there will be. Is it a major this week? I've lost track. I believe it's our first major of the.
Which one?
COVID season.
COVID season.
I've
been off of golf, unfortunately. I can't get up on Thursday mornings to do it.
It was the one. It was the one casualty for me. The PGA Championship. Sorry.
Okay.
It's been the one casualty for me because I've gone heavy on NHL because our NHL projections. Chef's kiss. Thank you, Jay Kari. Thank you, Alex. When I remember to set my lineups, I've been doing well. Today I paid the rake on that morning, those morning contests for the showdown. You guys are all welcome. I'll do that from time to time. Day job sometimes gets in the way. Gotta go with who's paying the pills here first, but definitely want to check that out. And then again, we do have so tonight you'll get Jason Roslin and Ben Raza going over everything for the field for golf. And then the freebie today, for those of you that are just joining now, we do have the projections for baseball are free. So I will drop that link into the chat, but of course you can get that by going to awesemo.com, top bar there, click on MLB and then click on projections.
That is pretty solid. Put those free projections together with some of the stack articles that we've been writing, some of the tools if you're behind the paywall, not bad.
All right, I got update, breaking news. I believe Alex Awesemo Baker is going to be on the golf show tonight because, yesterday he built his tolerance up with 3 shows. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of bored, guys. I need some more stuff to do. So he's going to jump on there covering for Ben there. Again, we have most of our people are on the Eastern Seaboard here. So a variety of people, probably half of our people have lost power at some point in the last 48 hours. So it's been a little bit crazy for that. So let's talk about bats. We get Andrew Mock is asking, tell me a little bit about the Braves bats. You wrote them up, so I think you're well positioned to do this, Terry. They're missing a key guy, but what do you like about those that are still going to be in the lineup?
Yeah, bear with me 1 second here. I am getting a little bit frozen here. So yeah, I think it's a spot we could definitely attack. Hang on half a second here. Okay, so Hyunjin Ryu is a good pitcher. But I think we've got a lot of righty bats in this lineup that we really like. So I think it's a guy we can target. He hasn't been too solid so far in this two Blue Jays starts. Not something we want to pay too much attention to, the most current results, small sample size stuff. But it's a guy who, he's a 4.23 FIP guy, doesn't strike out a ton of hitters. So I think they're going to have some opportunities here. We've got some free swingers in that lineup, but we've got a lot of pop, a lot of guys who can connect. So I'm getting great projections on Acuna. We lose Ozzie Albies, but that puts Dansby Swanson in that 2 spot. So we've got a string of right-handed hitters that I like. I don't love the idea of not having Freddie Freeman in there, even though he's a lefty. And Travis d'Arnaud, not really a great target in the cleanup spot there. But then we can get down to an Adam Duvall and Austin Riley, big right-handed bats with a ton of power. So I think we can still put together something with this Brave stack that works well. And I think we might get away with it being a little bit sneaky. I don't have the let's see if the update has come through. So earlier in the day, they were around like a 4% top stack, 4.5% top stack rating, and going a little bit under that for the team ownership share. So with some of those lineup changes, we might see that slip even further, and that could be a sneaky spot.
All right. I'm seeing our top 3 pitchers on DraftKings at the moment are Clevenger, Darvish, and Teheran with regards to popularity. Teheran was on the COVID list, so he, wasn't an injury, but we'll see how far he's going to go. He's going against Seattle. That should help him out a little bit as opposed to pitching in Tampa. In Atlanta. I'm all over the place. Yeah. My apologies. So let me back up where I was going with this. What I do want to say is, even though he's changed teams, he used to be someone that we target with lefties, just fire away. Over the last couple seasons, when he was finishing up with the Braves, I would always see him pitch a lot because he'd be going against the Nationals. And looking at the numbers, he actually started giving up as much, if not more, power to righties, which is not a good thing because now he can't even get righties out. A lot of times it's the Ulysses Chacin syndrome. Can't get a lefty out, gets all the righties out. Tony Cingrani, there's a variety of guys where you're just like, yeah, any lefties in the lineup, they're dead meat. But if it's a righty heavy lineup, they got a fighting chance here. They're going to be just fine. So this is a different Julio Teheran. I would actually rather take John Gray over Teheran in Coors Field against San Francisco than I would with Teheran in Seattle. That's my take. But I wanted to give people some comparison there and why I'm saying that. Because if I just said, I'm like, oh, you're crazy, Emac. I may be crazy, but I do have a reason for this one.
You might be crazy, but for completely other reasons. So, yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I don't really want any part of either pitcher in this game, to be quite honest. Marco, same kind of story. I think we could target both sides of the bats in this one. The Mariners, I think, are now in play with that change. You mentioned the lefty power, and with the changing with some of the righty power that he's given up in recent years, I think we can get to a Kyle Lewis, Kyle Seager stack with maybe a Vogelbach in there, a J.P. Crawford lefty leading off is, interesting positional play and not that much money. So not the biggest home run numbers on these guys, not the biggest projections, but as a potentially low-owned sneaky play, I'm seeing, under 1% ownership on half these guys. The highest owned guy is Vogelbach at 5.2% on FanDuel. Similar looking numbers, a little bit higher on DK. We've got Dylan Moore is going to be 11% on DK. Nola's like 8.3, but still very, very big playable numbers. A little bit sneaky there. Like the Angels side of it better. I wrote them up last night. Assuming that we're getting Joe Adell in this lineup again, really like his bat. Ton of power in that kid. Big time up and comer. We all know about Mike Trout. We all know about Anthony Rendon. So I love a little three-man stack with those three guys. I don't know if that lineup come out in the last few minutes since we started the show, but those guys going against Marco is a great target.
Still waiting on that one. The other thing I wanted to mention, and then we'll look here at some of the tools. So comparing where I am against the field, and this is we may have done an update from this, but you want the actual numbers, got to get behind the paywall here. Definitely check that out here at Awesemo. You've got the projections for free, but I'm going to talk some of the pitching ownership here, and I think mine might be a cycle or two old, but it'll be directionally correct. So I'm going very spread out tonight. So the top pitcher at the moment is Clevenger with about 30%. I'm feeling fine. I'm going to match the field there. Darvish is at 24%. I'm not a huge fan of his. I would have said 10% guy. I'm actually going to 20. I may have to bump that to 25 because I'm running out of other pitchers that I'm going to do. Teheran, I'm going with 5%. The field right now is 4 times that. Garrett Richards, I'm going 5%. Field's 4 times that. I don't want to tangle with the Dodgers. Garrett Richards is healthy, but I think we were talking about this last night. Yet another Angels pitcher that's made about 30 starts over the last 5 seasons. It's one of those where he's now he's on with a new team. We talked about Shoemaker the same way, but it's frustrating going against that. Sean Manaea, I'm only going 5%. Fields at 20. That's a huge stand. I'm not feeling great about Manaea and just his, he was a guy that was hurt last year. He's been lights out and all that. I don't know that he's back per se. I don't believe he has any walks yet on the season, but it makes me nervous. What do you think about Manaea on this one? Because he's one I could see myself if I may need to bump up because I'm adding up all my pitchers and I'm counting all of them and they're up to 200 right now. I need to get that to about 215, 220 or my crunches are going to take forever to run.
Yeah, that's going to block it down for sure. Manaea's a guy I think maybe you want to pump up there. He's a guy I like. We saw a couple, the end of the year last year, he came back and put up a couple decent starts for us. He's not my highest projected guy, and I think he's more expensive on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. So I like it better on FanDuel where he's only 68. I think it's a playable
86
play there.
On DK is a lot.
Yeah, 86 on DK explains a little bit about maybe making that ownership decision. But I might crank him up a little further than that. He's a guy that limits lefty power and can get the strikeout. So if you can limit a guy like Joey Gallo, we mentioned it on the early bird last night, keep his home run bat out of this. Maybe a Ruben Odor, keep his home run bat out of the equation here, and then work his way through some of those righties. I think he's got a shot. I don't hate this spot for him. So I think maybe you pump that up a little bit. Don't go crazy with it. But yeah, I could see getting to more Manaea. He does allow some home runs already. 1.26 home run per 9 careers. So not great there, but around 20-ish Ks. But I think we can go over that. And there's a lot of strikeouts in this lineup. You get Gallo. You get a guy, Chirinos is in there. He's a 30% guy. You got Odor is a 30% guy. So there are gettable bats in this lineup as far as striking people out.
All right. I'll bump it up to 10. We'll see what happens here. And then start thinking about home run calls. We'll have to see who's in the chat and ready to do this. Jay Kari, I'm expecting an entry here from you. You didn't give us one yesterday. They're asking for top stacks, so we don't want to completely bury the lead. Let me just scroll down and see if there's any other pitchers worth on. We'll circle back on Ross Stripling and Kyle Gibson. I think they're worth discussing, and then Lance McCullers as well for people that are coming in as guys we may want to take. Right now, I've got those 3 guys sitting at 20 to 25% for what I'm doing on the 2 pitcher sides, and I feel relatively comfortable about that. McCullers, kind of all over the place, but the pitch count's going to be there. So plus the roof is closed and he's got the humidor there in Arizona, and they're coming with the 4.4 implied run total. So let's talk about guys we want to target, and let's start off directly with Robbie Ray. I feel that Houston, and this doesn't matter what they get last night, 8 runs or 9 runs, whatever it ended up being. I'm still good with this against Robbie Ray. So in his last kind of 33 starts last year and 2 this year, multiple home runs 10 times, 7+ strikeouts 20 times. You're getting both sides of this. He has looked god awful this season. It has been an absolute disaster. Yes, it's been 2 starts. So, we little hyperbolic there. But I do want to point out that he did walk a career high 6 in his last start. That's not good.
No, last I checked, not good. Don't want to be putting guys on base quite that often.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that I want to try to get to Houston. They're not cheap on DraftKings, at least Bregman, Altuve, Springer. DraftKings has done a good job of pricing up all their key hitters for each of the teams. But I think this might be my antidote against the Rockies.
Yeah, I like the spot a lot for Houston. You're probably going to hear my home run call come from that team unless somebody poaches it before I get to go. So I think it's a great spot. We know who Robbie Ray is. Every now and again, he's going to post one of those big starts where he strikes out a bunch of guys and manages to, by some miracle, not walk anybody. That's not the start I'm expecting from him here. He's got 3 guys in the middle of this lineup, Altuve, Bregman, and Gurriel, all projected for under 15% strikeout rate from Steamer. Not an easy spot there. A couple other guys limit the strikeout okay, but there's just a ton of pop against a lefty in this lineup. For a guy that gives up multiple home runs frequently, he's a bit of a gas can. He's going to be putting guys on his 11.2% walk rate in 2019. So it's not just a small sample from this year. We know he's going to be giving up opportunities. So if you get a few guys on, you get that long ball from one of these key hitters. That's a spot that could definitely go off. And there's some quality bats that might be a little bit lower on. You pick off a Kyle Tucker toward the back of this. Yeah, it's a lefty-lefty matchup, but still, kid's got a ton of upside. He's got good power, so you never know. He might be a difference maker in your stack in a way to get very unique and very different with what will probably be a pretty popular stack tonight.
All right. So not respecting his elders is El Negro Loco, the news god. He has put in his home run pick. It is not from the Astros, so we will announce that. It is Bo Bichette.
Ooh.
This is your first show. I, too, will be probably taking someone from Houston, but I'm going to let you go first because you have more than earned this as the leader in the clubhouse with all of these home run calls you've gotten right. Last night was my first one. If I get another one tonight, I'll be on a heater, I guess. But 1 for 8 or whatever thus far, not the best.
I've been on a major cold swing with my my daily call anyway. The model's still working pretty well. I think we're hitting some of those team by team picks, but yeah, I think I've been 0 for the last week or so on my calls too. So looking to get off the schneid here. I'm going with an Astro. I'm going with Mr. George Springer off the top.
All right. That's who I was leaning towards as well. I will take Alex Bregman. Well, Springer, Bregman, Altuve. It's not like that any of them are bad. And, Yonder Alonso. Not Yonder Alonso. I can't believe I just did that. Jordan Alvarez. I miss Yonder Alonso. Jordan Alvarez, if he was in the lineup, I'd go lefty just to have some fun.
But I love that kid's bat.
We'll take this one here. So we'll have to see if Jake comes up with anything. But I will take Alex Bregman, and you have George Springer.
Yeah, I like the pick by Ron with Bo Bichette there. That's picking off one of those juniors from the Toronto lineup, so I like that a lot. And I can't hear that name without thinking Boba Fett from Star Wars, just the way everybody says it.
Exactly. And News Guy does want to let us know he did get his pick right last night. He is correct. He did call Altuve last night.
Nice.
So
nice.
Let's see here. All right. Let's talk about the stack tool here and what's showing up. Again, I had pulled this down a little bit before, but we haven't gotten any lineup. Let me rephrase that. All lineups were in prior to me getting this information. It won't change that much. We do usually do one more update right around now just to see what's been going on throughout the industry and social media and stuff like that. So and the other variables that go into this that I don't know all of, and I'm just speculating on the other ones, but it sounds fun to say social media and things like that. Sure. But we're getting a general sense. Yeah. General census for kind of a general sense of the consensus of where things are going, but this will be close enough. So it's no surprise. So we're just going to talk stack percentage. So the Rockies have this is DK, 14% chance of being the best stack tonight. No surprise, right? But they're only owned 11.5%. So that means you would want to lean on those guys to be able to be ahead of the field, as opposed to someone like Minnesota, who has a 10% chance of being the top stack, but 16% of the field is on there. So when we say we're going to leverage against something, if something has a higher outcome and less people are going that route, then that's where you want to go. Now, why are less people going that route? Well, on DraftKings, we already said the bats are incredibly expensive for Colorado. So that forces people to make different decisions. But, that's where we say paying up to be contrarian. That's the perfect example. What are you kind of looking at for? I mean, the Twins are going to be up there. The Astros are going to be up there. The Rockies are going to be up there. Is there anybody else that feels good to you?
Yeah, so those are a lot of the targets. The Cubbies look pretty good as well. A little bit over-owned on FanDuel, but they look pretty good on DK. It's around level ownership, which is fine. It doesn't always have to be a strong ownership advantage. We want to target those situations like you were calling out with the Rockies when they do appear. But when we're getting a team that's, around the 9% chance of being the top stack, 9% ownership share, that's fine as a target to work in, and then maybe combine them with some of the lower teams. Pick off a Dodgers. I wrote up the Dodgers a little bit earlier, and they're pulling a little bit lower ownership, and they're ranked a little bit down if you just view it as a list going from top to bottom. But if you look at the actual percentages in here, the Dodgers are at 3.8 on DK, and if you go up 5 spots, the Angels are only at 6.1. So you're talking about a 3% differential. It's not gigantic. So you can consider those relatively similar plays. You can look at those together and then look for the ownership advantages in there and kind of use that as the way to determine which of your secondary stacks you want to put with all those big stacks at the top. So the ones you named, I think are in great spots. San Francisco on the other side of the Coors game, we talked about a little bit. Definite ownership advantage there on both sites. FanDuel in particular. 10% chance they're second ranked in the stack tool and going well under, about half what they should be owned. So that's a target, I think. Even though we like Johnny Gray, we know what Coors can do and we know what they can do against that bullpen once they get to it. So that's a spot I would target.
All right. Now I got to take a look here because I'm going to start my crunches and we don't have the Angels. And the Angels are always a little tricky with us. Oh, Ketel Marte for Chris Spags. So there we are. Just keeping the chair warm for you, Spags, but he's in the mix there. I'll go enter that in the sheet. We've got – this is where it gets a little tricky. So nobody is hurt, but we do know that Tommy La Stella is a little dinged up. So I'm just making sure – he's going to come into a lot of lineups because he's 2,900. What I'm going to do is I'm going to preemptively lower someone like him so I can work around him. We're hoping Joe Adele is in the lineup again. That would be nice to see, but I'm just double checking because I don't want to start crunching a bunch of lineups here and then have to go back and fix them because when you're on air, there's all sorts of craziness. And I know I'm kind of hemming myself into a corner there if I go too heavy on any of these particular guys. So what I've been doing lately is I've just been capping my overall hitters at 30%. Totally comfortable with that. I used to do 50, but I've gone with 30 more recently. I'm trying to make a little more differentiation everywhere just because we don't know what's going on with Major League Baseball this year. Pitchers it's not that it was ever projectable, but you knew who was about how many pitches someone was going to go, and you knew kind of where a player was doing. They've got 11 days of live pitching under their belt at this point, and not everybody's played every day. So I'm giving myself more chances for good things to happen by doing this. We'll see.
I think that's the move. I
had Luis Robert with 50% owned the other night, and he had like 22 DraftKings points. It works out in your favor sometimes.
When it lands, that's it. When it lands. That's it.
30% would have been fine.
Yeah. And I've done the same this year. I have a formula in my model here that creates an ownership share for each guy, bouncing off a couple different things, the ownership projections, my point projections, a few other things. And I actually went in and I changed how that number works. I changed it, let's call it 1.5 was the multiplier that I used, and I knocked it down to like 1.2, 1.3, just to lower that a little bit from where I used to be, because I want to spread out a little bit more this year with the crazy unpredictableness. You look like you're getting ready to announce something. I just saw you like wringing your fingers. Did you just come up with big news?
No, I'm laughing at how slow the crunches are going, and I'm so glad I started them now.
I'm not even trying. I told you before the show, I'm just going to take the night off. Maybe I'll play the late slate or something. I'm not even going to try on this computer to do the show and crunch at the same time. No way. Not on the first go. Maybe next time around.
Yeah, and that's why the 4-4. So I'm not running very many, and that's another thing I've done this year. I don't run 5-3s anymore, or 5-2s. I go 5-0 or some 4-4s, some 4-3s, but it's mostly 5-0 and 3-0 at this, or 4-0 at this point. For the late slates or the shorter slates, a lot of times I'll go 3-3. Just kind of see what I'm getting. But Fantasy Cruncher's been pretty cool because you can now pick who's in the lineup spots. So you can check and uncheck them. You can say how many people you're willing to skip between your hitters. If you don't change that, it defaults to any. If you say I don't want any stacks, it means you're going to get 3 or 4 or 5 adjacent hitters. It takes a long time for it to chunk through, especially with 20 teams in action. So I've usually been setting it at 1 or 2 as my gap. And I'm not that worried about it because you could go in and figure out what it would be for each team. But the thing I've learned over a long time, and Alex has even said this as well, what if it was that one low, crappy, random 9-hitter, and then you went, 3 other guys that aren't even close to him, but that would allow you to get the pitcher you want, the one-off you want, something that's like, well, of course I'd want that lineup.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna sweat over it that much.
And that's
life's too short.
And that's the important thing about Fantasy Cruncher. It's got so much capability. The more that you ask it to do, you are limiting yourself to a degree. So you're limiting not only the speed that it comes up with, but you're limiting options like that. And a lot of the time you get that weird Adam Engel 2-home run game, and all of a sudden he's breaking the slate. And guess what? You've got him at 6% or whatever, and you didn't get to him because of how you had Fantasy Cruncher set. So you want to be careful with your restrictions in there. You really want to get into it and play around, see what's what. And that's where Rewind is great. I love jumping into Rewind and just playing around with the previous slate or a couple slates. Hey, if I had done this, what would I have gotten? If I had chosen 4-3 stacks instead of 4-4s, how would that have looked? And really get in there and dial it in and make it your own. It's a tool, you guys. It's not something that's just going to spit out lineups for you and make you a winning player. You've got to utilize it. You've got to get in there and really learn it. So it's important. Just out of curiosity, what was the driving decision behind going to 4-0, 5-0 type stacks instead of going to double stacks?
It takes too long to run. It's the main
makes sense.
It allows me a little more control also with the pitchers, and it's been giving me some because I've really tamped down on getting specific stacks, and because we've been through this Coors Field homestand, that really made a huge difference in trying to get those the Rockies side in this particular case, and then even both sides of this San Diego Rockies one over the weekend. It helped it go a little more smoothly for me, to kind of influence what I want, and then it's easier to check on because then I don't mind as much by saying, oh, I didn't get this particular stack, then I'll just uncheck all the other stack, or you can global uncheck, and then I'll just make one team 100%. Okay, I'll run 10 lineups with this team as the featured stack. Okay, where's my mix? All right, now I'll run another 10. Where's my mix? So I'm doing it this way. You would think I would do the same thing that you guys do in Excel. I literally live in Excel all day, and I just don't feel like looking at it. So I've been going this route. It's basically doing very similar to what you and Josh and Jake and Adam and Alex and Tom and all those guys are doing. But it also helps me. I can explain to people, hey, here's a way to do it if you don't know Excel.
Sure.
You're kind of doing the same thing. It's because one of the biggest questions we get is how much randomness do you use? What do you use for player caps? And what do you use for your uniques? All those things work in conjunction. So if you go crazy on all of them, you're just throw confetti in the air, and that's what your teams are going to look like. And you're not going to be the one celebrating.
So you're going to be asking us, why am I getting that error message, and why doesn't Cruncher work?
Exactly. So my uniques, I usually use 2. And you just need to understand how that works. So if you're going 4 stacks, it just means, I'm always going to have at least 2 different stacks, or it's going to change 2 of my pitchers from whatever the last lineup created was. So even if you are rigid that way, you'll still get some differentiation. Randomness just means it's taking, if you have the FC Pro version, it puts everything on a bell curve and says if you say I'm using 20% randomness, it's going to make a bell curve distribution around your projection. If you don't, that's okay. Back it off a little bit, run about a 10 or a 15% in baseball. And what it does is it just says, I'm going to take plus or minus 10 on either side of your projection. I'm just going to randomly pick one of those. You don't know if it's going to be high. You don't know if it's going to be low. The bell curve keeps things closer to your projection. So if you want to flatten that out or spread it out more, you've got to make your randomness really wide, because you've got to say, I need an extreme outlier to get past that first standard deviation. So that's probably more than people wanted to hear, but those are the questions that you try to explain that in Slack chat. It's like, no, but
that's one I hit a bunch of times in the last few years when I was before I was even on the inside of the site. So definitely one we want to, and it's important. It's definitely an important aspect of how to use those tools. So get in there, guys, and really learn Fantasy Cruncher. Make it home along and do what you want it to do.
All right. Reminder, SuperDraft is going to go at 7:10. That is 22 minutes from now. They will probably end up going off rake-free tonight. There will be a little room in their contests. I bet they'll get up to about 90% full. So you definitely want to check that out. That's 5 minutes after the regular lock. If you have not yet signed up for SuperDraft, use the promo code Awesemo10. That's Awesemo10. And when you make your first deposit, if you put in $10, they'll match it with 10. If you put in 100 or more, they'll give you 20. It's a great deal. And that money, that super cash, that comes out of your account first automatically when you're entering the contest. So they do all the heavy lifting for you. They have late swap. What they don't have is salaries. Well, how do they do that? They have multipliers. So tonight, if we're looking here at the moonshot, they have Mike Clevenger as a pitcher. Well, I want to pick Mike Clevenger. He's got a 1 multiplier. That means whatever fantasy points he gets, that's what he gets. You know who doesn't? Ross Stripling. Ross Stripling has a 1.85 multiplier there. So if Stripling were to score, let's say, 15 fantasy points, and that Clevenger had an awesome game and scored 25 fantasy points, Stripling's still going to outscore Clevenger with that multiplier on it. Damn, that's a
really nice spot there, actually. And that's a site that I have to dig into more. I love playing over there when I've been there, and I just haven't been on it enough. Then I don't have my models built for it. So that's one of my goals for this year is I know it's a short season, but I'm going to try and play over there a little bit more because I really like that model of the multipliers and how that works. So I think he makes a great target, Stripling, with that. He's a 27% strikeout guy the last 3 years, career 3.52 xFIP. So definitely great target over there. What's Johnny Gray's multiplier, just out of curiosity?
155.
Okay. I like that too. That could be sneaky.
I had looked at that.
I think I like the Stripling one better,
yeah,
but that's not bad.
Yeah, so that's where they are on the pitchers. Now the hitters feel a little bit different. But who's our guy? Adele, rolling in the deep.
That could be one to pick off early. If
Adele is 2.0, a doubler. So that is as high as it goes. But for perspective, Mike Trout is a 1.25. Trout was. I think he was still 1.25 last night, so that was a good one. But the Rockies, Story, Arenado, Blackman are 1, 1.1, and 1.1. So you kind of get the feel here for what it's doing is they're using that multiplier to take into account pitching matchup, venue, etc. But
it's a different way of
George Springer is the 5th lowest at 1.2. Right. And that was your home run guy.
So back for that one.
Yeah, he's a little lower than Mike Trout. Mike Trout should always be 1.0, but just saying.
We got to take into account that he only does his job well like 30% of the time, though. He's got to get a little multiplier.
All right. Shout out to Hammer74. Says, good to see my smiling face. Do the voice. I don't know what voice do I have. I have so many goofy ones. The laugh, the chuckle that everybody can only hear in their head every time they think it's me. Half the people like it, half the people loathe it.
I've always enjoyed. I like it on when I'm listening back on our pods. It sounds like we're having a fun time, and we are.
Well, yeah, that's what my wife says. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because she can hear me from my office here. She's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You sound like you're having fun. Seems interesting.
I wonder that about my upstairs neighbor. I live in an apartment, so I'm not sure how much they actually hear up there when I'm projecting my voice on these things, but they might be learning about baseball.
All right, let's make some 5-0 stacks and see where we landed here on everything. Still waiting on that Angels lineup there. I don't suspect any trickery tonight, but I really want to see where I'm at with Adele.
And at least with that, the Angels lineup, you're mentioning some of the changes. At least with the late swap now, we don't have to worry about it too much. It's out on the West Coast. So at least we can get in there and make some changes, even if it's within that lineup or using one of the tools, the late swap optimizer on Fantasy Cruncher. Great tool to get in and make some late changes. What I like to do when I use that is just break down my CSV export. I take out all the games I don't want to change and only upload the games that I do actually want to change. A lot of people complain that, well, I put it in there, but then it screwed up all my other exposures. That's because it's what you asked it to do. Again, It's a tool. It's only going to do what you ask it to do. So if you load in just the lineups you want to change, problem solved. You don't have to worry about that. So that's how I like to use late swap optimizer. And then I think, the Angels probably should have, even if Listella's not playing, I think they should have a couple options in there that would be similar price, similar projection. So a couple swap options.
All right. So it looks like I'm going in heaviest on Colorado. I'm totally comfortable with that. 17% of 4-man stack, 11 for Houston, 10 for Minnesota, and 10 for the Angels. So I'm fine with that. 5-man stacks didn't do very many. Houston at 7%, Angels at 4%, Minnesota at 3%. And then there's just collateral after that because of once you run the 4-0s and 5-0s, so you get 2-man stacks even though you weren't intending that. I'm playing every pitcher except for one. I do not have any Logan Webb. I ended up with 8% Randy Dobnak. I had to force that in. It wasn't giving me any. So I forced that one in. I'm okay with that. I'm going 5 with Ray, Newcomb, 10 with Manaea, 5 with Richards, Teheran, 30 with Clevenger, 20 with Darvish, and then 20 with Antone McCullers, 17 with Kyle Gibson. I think Kyle Gibson, someone we didn't mention, I actually like him going against the righty-heavy Athletics. So I'm going to make another 10 lineups just with him. That'll bump him up a couple percent. We had a question here for Fantasy Draft Cash, basically the same scoring as DK. SJM would like to know, do we go with Clevenger and Nolan Arenado, or do we go with you and Polanco? I would take the former. How do you feel about you and Clevenger? That's a good comparison.
Yeah, they're my top 2 projected guys on FanDuel. So I could go either way on that choice. I think I'll lean into the Coors pick though with you. Since we're doing with the multipliers. What's the multiplier on? Who was the other guy? Polanco? Do we know the multiplier on him?
Oh no, this was on Fantasy Draft, so it's DraftKings.
Oh, I was thinking SuperDraft. So okay. Yeah, I think I would lean into the core side of that then with you. I think that's the right call there.
All right. Curious to why you do not like d'Arnaud tonight. 2,700 on FanDuel, cleanup catcher, low owned and cheap, and he'll be batting after Acuna, Swanson, and Ozuna. 4,400 on DK. He understands why that might not be the way to go on DK.
Yeah, so it's. When I say I don't like him, I mean more he's not a traditional bat that we really want to get to. He's just pulling up his numbers here. So hit 16 home runs last year, drove in 69. He's 251 average with a 312 on base, 433 slugging. He's a 182 ISO, under league average runs created in 2019. So he's fine. It would be a spot that I definitely don't want to advise anybody to rule out of the lineup, but it's more a spot where I'm playing the cleanup hitter at that price rather than the name on the back of the jersey. In a vacuum, Travis d'Arnaud is not a guy that I'm usually going to be targeting in here. But yeah, in that spot in the lineup, it's definitely a guy that as a part of that stack, you want to work in. It's not a guy I think I'm going to get to as like a one-off anywhere. but certainly as the fourth man or a fifth man in there, and using him on DraftKings at catcher is advantageous as a part of that stack. So if you're going to those stacks, yeah, I can see that for sure.
All right, I'm going to make a few more stacks here. I felt like I didn't have enough Houston, so I'm intentionally getting some Houston. I also don't have – I'm okay not having Arizona with the ground ball tendencies there for McCullers, but it looks like I really don't have many A's, and that's okay.
Yeah, against Gibson, you can get away with that probably. Any little shares of like Toronto or Atlanta in there? Just as a mix-in?
3% Atlanta. Oh, that's 5 man. Let's look at 4 man. 4% Atlanta, 4% Toronto, 4% Cleveland, 4% Mariners. So yeah, kind of 4% of those.
Yeah, I like all those. Let's see if we're able to identify. I'm just looking again through the top stacks here. And another spot that I like to look to, and it's something that helps you figure out, in addition to the pricing driving ownership down in the top stacks tool, we've also got the value column in there. And Minnesota's got a big value number tonight. They're a 15-2 value on the way that Alex calculates that. So that's why we're seeing Minnesota at such a high ownership share on DraftKings. But when I see a big value number, that also, again, it's a play that we can make because you're saving a lot of money there and you're able to combine it with basically anything that you would want if it's a good value and if you're getting a decent projection. So those aren't numbers on Minnesota that would necessarily scare me off. If that was like a 20-plus ownership share, then I would start probably looking to get under it. But at around 15, I'm comfortable at least being with the public there. And I might still look to get over if I'm building 150 lineups.
All right. Checking back here on SuperDraft. Reminder, they're going to go till 7:10 before their lock. Looks like they're probably going to leave about 10% room, maybe 15% room in some of their contests here, which again is going rake free. It's a huge difference on your bankroll. It means if you're kind of a break-even player, all of a sudden you're actually going to be at well above break-even. But they still have 200 spots left in the solo shot. That's their $1 tournament. They've got 80 spots left in their $3 triple play. And the moonshot's got 100 spots left. That's only 11 entry max, so it may not fill up quite as quickly. And then if you just want to play around there, they do have a free roll, and then they've got the nickel contest, which is literally costs a nickel to play. All right, I am going to do my upload here, Terry. So I got to do the download here first.
Glad I'm not sweating that right now. Like I said, this is doing the debut. I'm not going to try and be putting in lineups, and that's chaotic enough for me. I don't know how it goes for you every day, but usually I'm doing it a minute before lock with getting my upload in and my heart going like this. One of these days it's going to kill me.
Yes,
it gets challenging and gets fun.
That is typically, it's worse with basketball.
Yeah. Oh, basketball is the brutal one. And that's the one where I've run into more. I missed lock by 15 seconds because I was trying to get this done and couldn't get it uploaded, or my computer didn't pull up the menu quick enough. So it always makes sense to plan ahead. My old boss used to tell me, well, if I want to be on time for meetings my whole life, I set my watch back 5 minutes. And that's never something that's actually worked in practice for me, because then I look at my watch and I say, well, I've got an extra 5 minutes. But as a planning strategy, that's something we might want to do, right? Maybe we look at 7 o'clock as lock. And that's something I've been trying to do this year, and it's helped me a lot. Is just, hey, my lock is 7 p.m. I don't care about that last little piece of news. The advantage I'm going to gain by waiting till 7:04 and 30 seconds is completely non-existent. It's only in my head. So I'm going to try and shoot for head.
It's 8:30 show. That will be Alex Baker joining Jason Roslin today. We've got the PGA lineup builder is free. So once we hit lock here, if you guys want to play around with that, that's available. It'll kind of show you different ways to construct your lineup. It'll give you little grades and ratings, how unique your lineup is, how is it against value, etc. But it helps you show the value of different players when you bring them in or out, or build different types of lineups. So that's a fun one to do, in particular with golf. Let me see here.
And Alex being on the strategy show, I might have to tune into that and play some PGA, especially not playing baseball tonight. Maybe I'll build some PGA lineups instead.
Absolutely. I actually miss it, but I had to. Now, here's what I am doing. I'm playing single games. It's easier for me to go and build 3 or 4 of those rather than trying to figure out my player pool. And frankly, the way they've done the cuts and all that, it was just an absolute disaster for me. And I had one good week and then literally lost the rest of the weeks on my main slate. most of the weekends, I was just reading Jason Roslin's article, and I would cash break even or at least make about 20% on my weekend lineups. And then I started doing really well on my daily lineups, just making a few of them, putting them in a couple 50-50s, and then a couple of the smaller tournaments, and doing 2 or 3x. So I said, why don't I just focus on those two? Don't have the crazy late Wednesday night trying to do everything. Plus, we do the podcast and all that. So it was just making my days too long. But there are other ways you can still get into golf. And I'm not a huge fan of solo slates, but I am for hockey and I am for golf. Not really for baseball. Not really for basketball. The chalk just gets so darn heavy, especially in the playoffs. But it works out pretty well, I think, for hockey and for golf.
Yeah, it sounds like a great approach to golf, to be honest. It's not something I really thought too much about, but yeah, jumping in on the single day, especially when we know those projections are nice and sharp and we're getting such great guidance, that's a good idea because then you don't sweat those cuts and you know that at least your guys are going to finish.
And it also works because then you know about weather, about other guys' current form, even on the course, especially when you get into day 3, who maybe was a little bit nerve-wracking because they just barely made the cut. Now they're like sigh of relief, and then they fall apart because they're one of the golfers that doesn't usually make the cut. There's a whole different level of nuance. You can group your guys better together, and we know that the morning groups generally get about a stroke to 1.4 strokes better than the afternoon groups. Now, lots of people know that, but people in Showdown still aren't taking as much advantage of it. So you want to take a little nibble here of an advantage, a little one here, and all of a sudden you got a little bit, a tangible advantage. So that I think is something you can still do with the Showdown golf. And I've been
every little piece of edge we can find, right?
Yep. All right, we're about 2 minutes away, and the Angels, they're just they're not going to tell us who's there, but that's all right.
Get on that 2x multiplier on Joe Adell, guys. He's going to be in that lineup. I love the matchup. The kid's got tremendous power. Great shot to hit a home run tonight. And if you're getting that at 2x, I like it.
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes here, so we're hitting lock. I'm going to go build a fun little lineup over here on SuperDraft. I'm going to go with Ross Stripling.
I like it.
Is a 1.85 multiplier. We've got McCullers at 1.7. Do you think there's enough strikeout upside for him? I worry about that.
I've got
or Darvish at 1.25. Yeah, Darvish at 1.25 is pretty juicy if you are a believer in Darvish.
Yeah, that I like. I like Darvish on the slate, so that might be a spot for me.
All right, and then let's go to our Angels. We know we want to have Mike Trout at 1.25. Adell is just too good of a deal at 2.0. So we're going to have both those guys in. And there is late swap, so for some reason they're not in the lineup. Plenty of time to get them out. And then let's look at some Coors Field. Now the Coors Field hitters, no multiplier basically, 1 or 1.1. So Trevor Story, 1.1. I don't really want to go, or 1. Nolan Arenado, 1.1. No, I'm okay with Blackman at 1.1. Like that lefty matchup there against Webb. I'll take him. I like David Dahl at 1.25. I'll take him. So now I've got a little 2-man grouping of Trout, and although they're going to be farther apart in the lineup, but Blackman and Dahl will just be one away.
Right, they should be. Yeah, nice and tightly correlated. 1-2 is the tightest correlation in baseball, from what I understand.
Yeah. So then that means who else do we like? Oh, we had George Springer. That was your home run pick. Let's take him. He was 1.2. And then what's Alex Bregman at? Bregman at 1.35. Sorry.
Like the idea.
Sorry, El Negro Loco. I'm not hearing me say Bo Bichette. So there we go. But there's my SuperDraft lineup. So I feel relatively comfortable with that. So we've got the Stripling at a 1.85 multiplier, Darvish at 1.25. Now there was only Clevenger was the only one with the lower one than Darvish, but that's still okay. You've got Trout at 1.25. He shouldn't be that high. You've got Adell at 2.0. It's a rookie. It's baseball. Who knows? But then you've got Blackman, only 1.1, so we're not getting a great deal there. Dahl at 1.25 is good. Springer at 1.25, lefty killer. Same thing with Bregman at 1.35. I'm good with that.
Yeah, those plays make a lot of sense there. Even with the low multipliers, you're just buying into. It's like paying up in salary. It's the exact same decision. So it makes a lot of sense. They're probably the most likely spot to go off. They're the top ranked stack on both of our sites on the Top Stacks tool. So definitely, it's a spot you want to target, and getting those are the right 2 bats to do it with. I like that lineup.
Yeah, so now we just look and see what do we have for overlay. Well, I'm going to jump in. Am I in the triple play? I think I'm in the triple play now. So that's got 50 spots left with 3.5 minutes. The moonshot has 100 spots left. Now that's $15. So I want to think a little bit more about my lineups before I just point blank jump in for $15. I'm okay with my lineup. And by the way, I've picked almost everybody from later games. So if I want to go in and tweak that, I've got, my Angels, the Rockies, and the Houston Bats are all later. So that's okay. But we've got other things we've got to do. And I've got some NHL Showdown lineups and stuff. So I'm not going to quite jump into that. But I will do the 3-man. It looks like their nickel contest is just over half full. Yeah, not a great return of value, but it's fun to, as you're falling asleep, check that out. And then they've got a $2 double up and a $10 triple up. That is a third full right now.
There you go. So those are great spots.
Doing some math in my head, is it worth just slamming in $10 there on my 90 seconds of research?
That's when we make the best decisions, guys. Yeah. 90 seconds to go on your crunch time. So yeah, those sound like good spots, and those are little bankroll builders. They're not gigantic payouts. You're not going to win $100,000 doing that. But when you see a tournament like that with a decent little payout that's going half full, a third full, leaving all that room, jump in. That makes a lot of sense. You're winning that field down, and you're making it really easy to cash at least. You take down the win, you're getting a nice little payday. Every win counts.
No, I'm just saying. Yeah, so I'm in the triple play, the solo shot, the nickel. But we'll see. There's a minute left.
How many more can you click on in 60 seconds?
Who else is jumping into that $10 triple up?
I think we can fill that one with
right. So
30 seconds left, 50 people.
Now you have guys. What do we do?
Hit the thumb on YouTube and then go jump into that tournament. Come on.
All right, 90 seconds left. The $2 double up is going to have a little bit of room in it. But yeah, in particular, that triple play is probably going to go about 10% short.
So that sounds pretty good.
So yeah, that's a nice spot. And the $1 solo shot, you can even you could pick from the last game of the night, click in your players, and then you got some time to tweak it. But that one's going to go up with about 20%.
Yeah, and that's what you always got to do when you're throwing in a lineup at the last possible second. Guys, if you don't already know this, pick that West Coast game and just throw everybody in from that so that you can at least make some changes. You don't want to get stuck with somebody at a 7:05 game, 7:10 game in your lineup and not able to take them out. Had that happen.
Yes, and that is you also should not, as I learned today, just set your placeholder lineup just by randomly clicking hockey players.
That's how I do my placeholders every day. I flip the salary to the bottom and I just go bump. It's not a good way to do it. So much better, guys. Build an actual lineup. If you get stuck somewhere, your car breaks down, whatever, you can't get to a computer, at least you got 150 lineup trained. That's a quality lineup. So that's the smart way to do it. The other way is the me way to do it. You don't want to do it the other way.
Don't, unless you're willing to laugh at yourself losing money.
Which I always am.
All right, I'm in that. We got that triple up. It's now the equivalent of just over a double up, but you have 3x upside. So there you go. Not too shabby. But that's when you get overlay. Yep. You got to be ready to look. You got to be nimble, and you got to go after it. It doesn't mean that you have to just throw money at it and make bad lineups. I wasn't entirely comfortable with my quick move, so I said, I'm going to sit out of that $15 moonshot. But you know what? I wanted to chase that going after that triple up there. That's only $5 left. This is $10, so it wasn't that much of a difference. But there was more room, and I like my odds with the lineup I built to go against the people in that. So that's kind of a quick little how to chase overlay tutorial. But check that out over there on SuperDraft. Again, Awesemo 10, Awesemo 10 with your first deposit, $10. They'll give you another 10. And then if you put in 100, they'll give you 20 on that one. All right. I think we are good. Oh, Alex is made an appearance there in regular YouTube chat. Says Teron on a pitch count, 60 pitches.
Ooh.
I'm good. I've got my 5%. I'll live with it. That works for me.
Look, he could get through 4 innings, give you a couple strikeouts, and put up some points. Not terrible. Not a guy I wanted anyway, but not terrible.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to wrap things up. 8:30, you've got the PGA show, Jason Roslin and Alex Baker. I believe this might be the first time Alex is on that show. He's now liking these multiple show days. So So clearly, we'll have to get him on the Early Bird podcast at some point, Terry, and join us there, just in case he doesn't double up during the day on something. But check that out. That'll be here on this very same YouTube channel. Go grab yourself some dinner, and you can jump back in and watch that. And remember, we've got the PGA lineup builder on our site. The lineup tool is free, so you can go in there and play around with that. But with that, you can follow Terry at
DigitalB21, DigitalB21 on Twitter.
And you can find me at Emac DFS. Of course, it is Awesemo_COM. Go check out our Twitter. There's always a pinned tweet giving something away or having some sort of contest. Well worth it. With that, gamers, good luck.